Okay, welcome to video number 6. I call this video layout versus layout. Why is that important? I mentioned in my prior videos that there was a difference on our forms. It was not because you launched the FileMaker on a Windows environment or a Mac environment. I mentioned it was because of the versions of the FileMaker. Like 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 is the latest version of FileMaker out today. Some perhaps have a Windows 12. There's a difference between the 12 and the 14. They still use the same database, but some of the features, some of the whistles and smart features and so on can run on a newer version like 15 or 14, where on 12 there were certain limitations in regards to the graphics and something called pop-up menus. So that's the reason I want to go through it, because if you are working on an older machine and you get an older menu, then you will say, yeah, but hey, there was more to these menu points. When we talk about tabs, why is there no tabs on the newer ones, but there are tabs on the older one? That's what we have to just go through very quickly. As we can see here to the left, this is the card form or the layout form that I have used until now, and that is the newer version of FileMaker. It's the same. The build-up of the forms or the cards are the same. You have a header, you have a body, and you have a footer. And up in the header you have the navigation. Then you have a headline. You have the create, delete, and duplicate or copy. Then you have the tabs, and as we spoke about in the last video, was that you had 6 tabs that was on all cards, for a few exceptions in regards to the setup. And here in regards to that was the tab General, List, it was the link, Personal, Key, and Information. These are the same everywhere. And down here in the bottom there is some navigation. Down here you can also see how many records is in this table. And if you're using the filter feature up here in the top, quick find, then down here these figures could deviate, because the right indicator down here shows you how many records there is in total. The 2 left ones shows you which one you're on right now, and then it shows you in the middle the current found set. How many did I find when I was filtering? So you could see where this here could perhaps be 3001, but in the total found set, that means that you had filtered, for instance, on a number up here, then you had 122 records that had that criteria. And then again, the left one will always show you on which record you stand in the found set, not in the total set, other than if you go up and release the filter up here, then you will see now I'm on the last record out of 3001. Before it was the first one out of 20 and so many records. But what is important just to point out here, there is some differences between the newer layouts and the older layout. One of them is the navigation buttons. You can see up here, I mentioned in my prior video that everything that was blue indicated that you could go somewhere. You could jump from one place to another, or you could jump to do something. But that's not always true, because if you're on an older version, then they're not blue, they are gray. Also, when you're on a newer version, there you have the pop-up. So if I press record, you can see here I could have a list of things that you can do here. That means that one button could have more menu points in here that could start up. In this case here, if I press record, it says you have the possibility of lists. If I go to an older version here, older layout, you will see here these are gray and they don't have any pop-ups or drop-down menus. They have here right away the menu point. The list comes right away, and press here, you list it. If there was a menu point called a variable case number, then you have it here. That hides itself over on the newer one on the management, and under here you can see there's a menu point called find available case numbers. That is the same as over here, that button called available case numbers. Over here we are limited. We don't have any pop-up or drop-down menus. When we go over to the other one over here, navigation, again, you press on it and you have a pop-up or drop-down. You have these menu points under here. If we go over to the older form, you can see right away the menu points are there on the menu line here, where you have main menu and setup menu. There are some of the menu points that's missing, but the reason is the limitation and the real estate, because there is not much room to put too many menu points on a line here, because then it will get all too crowded. So the important menu points are here on the older version. That is the main menu, the setup menu. In the newer one, you can see there is some extra. You can go to the startup menu and the query, batch journal, and so on. But these are not very important, or not important enough to put on over here on the old form. Then another thing that's different is that when you go down here to the form and we go to the general tab, we haven't yet gone through what is on the general tab, because it has something to do with navigation. It is very important that when you work in Filemaker that you understand how to navigate. How do I get from one place to another? Where do I get out of something? Where do I get the possibilities to go from here to someplace else? Therefore, it's very important to understand the navigation of it. When you look here, they look very similar, these two, because the information there is on the left side is the same as is on the left side of the new one. So there you can see here's the base information on a general tab called case number, description, description 2, and search status. If I go in an older form, it's the same, case number, description, and so on. Where it deviates is the sub form that is added to this tab form here, where you can see here there is a form. Over here on the older one is easier, because over here you can see there is 3 tabs over here. So here the first one, you can see who is the client that is linked to this case. Here is the client's address, and here is his contact information. So here's the client, his address, and his contact information. And you can see it here because it has tabs. On the newer ones, you don't see the tabs, but in the bottom down here, there is some small dots. These are the tabs. So if you press here, you're on personal. If you press the next one, you have the address. If you press the next one, you have the contact. And if you press the last one, this is an addition to the CTI URL where you have more information. But this information is mostly because it couldn't be over here, so there was added an extra tab. These tabs down here, they're called navigation buttons down here. But they work as tabs. There's just that there's no tab up here. And these tabs are also meant so that these forms can be used on an iPad where you swipe your finger over it. Which, if you use this form with an iPad, you have to press with the finger here on the tabs. But if you're on an iPad or an iPhone or who uses forms like this, then you can swipe. So therefore you have these small ones that is, you can also see they're gliding to the left and right, where over here they just come up. It's old-fashioned tab forms. So when you get into a newer version of a FileMaker solution and the form is utilizing the new features, then you have these subforms where they're meant to swipe. So the tabs are sitting down here in navigation buttons, where over here you have no navigation button because there is nothing over here who can be swiped, because the older version of FileMaker was not yet geared so much in regards to handheld devices like iPads and iPhones and so on. So here you have these tabs. These are really the big differences. I don't say it's big, but just be aware of it. Where you can also see it, if I go into personal, I go over here and start personally up, you can see the same. Over here I have comments, it's the same as you have here in personally, but over here you can see you have down here the navigation buttons down here so you could swipe, but over here you have the normal old-fashioned tabs where you press over here, press on the tabs. Over here you do it down here in the bottom. Or what you could do is there sits a small arrow here that's blue. If I press that, it does the same. It then jumps instead of swiping. So you could use, if you want to press here, or you could go down here, and then you can see the swiping movements of the forms. So just that you are aware of that. Again, here if we go into links, go over to links, you will see here there is down here 10 buttons. Over here there is, or 9 buttons. Over here there is 9 tabs. So over here you navigate in the tabs. There is only information on the first one, but there is prepared for other informations, where when you're over here, there the tabs are down in the bottom and you can see the swiping. So be aware of that. That's the difference when we're talking about layout versus layout, is that newer versions has these new features with swiping, and therefore the navigation buttons are here in the bottom, and there are small buttons down here, where on the older forms they are tabs. And then again, up in regards to the navigation up here, you have the pop-up menus on the newer forms. If you go into the older forms, you just have these buttons here. Just be aware of it. That's it. That was what I wanted to make aware of when you navigate around in FileMaker, and especially this solution. And what is important is to learn where to go, what is the menus for. Just to mention something just before I finish this video here, you can see it in the menu structure is the same. When you look at the menu here, you can see down here there is these tabs again, because there are small windows down here that you can navigate. If, let's say, you had an iPad, then you can swipe and it doesn't take much space. Also, what is very unique with this is that they're transparent, so you can put them on top of other things so that you can see here, you can navigate, or you can swipe them or navigate them by pressing these buttons down here. If you go over to the older form, if I go over to the main menu, down here there is no navigation buttons down here. You see there's a 1 here. When I press here, there's a 2. Here there's a 3. Down here there's nothing. And the same up in the top. You can see up here underneath the address of the solution owner here. Then you can see here there is these small navigation tabs, because in the top you have the same. But in the older form there is none, because you can't use these swipe forms or these new forms of tabs where they are not just transparent, but they are geared for iPads and iPhones and simply tablets where you're using your fingers so you can swipe it. That's this up here. And you can use the mouse. You can use either mouse or fingers and so on, where the older forms doesn't have it. But that's, again, it doesn't depend on if you're on a Windows machine or a Mac machine. It depends on the version of FileMaker that you're in. I hope that gives you a little bit of an understanding, if you should run across some of the old forms, that there is some differences. There could be a few others that perhaps I haven't mentioned here, but just be aware of. But the location of stuff, if something is in the left corner here, you can nearly guarantee that if it exists, it will be in the left corner. Doesn't matter what version of the window or form or layout you're on, then that button will be there if that's possible. So just have that in mind. That's it. Thanks for watching.